The Vanishing Patron. I've always been a night owl and was having some interest in Uber driving. It was almost too easy to sign up, and I started driving night shifts from midnight to 8 a.m. Now I lived in Nashville and had gotten a high-paying ride pickup all the way in Murfreesboro, which is 30 minutes southeast roughly. I figured it was late and I was the only one available at that time. I drove the 30 minutes and pulled up to the spot where my rider was. It was a late night bar and a drunk man hopped in without introducing himself. He said, "Let's go before I get in trouble." We left as men were rushing out of the bar, and I was worried the man would hurt me if I didn't do as he said, because I didn't get a good look at him until later. Now the man, being drunk, fell asleep immediately in the back seat and started snoring, and I figured maybe he's a drunk who starts verbal spats and runs away. I didn't think anything weird until I noticed the trip time was 45 minutes, even further south of Nashville. Now, I loved growing up in the country about 45 minutes away from Nashville, and I thought this would pay well and I could get a nice late night country drive. It did start to rain, and after the 45 minutes, I poked him and I said, "Hey bud, we're at your destination." It was a super old quaint white house with old chipping paint and almost too isolated out in the middle of nowhere in some town I honestly hadn't known to exist. I don't even remember the town's name, for I think I chose to block this memory for some time. Parts of me wish it stayed blocked. I turned around again to poke him, thinking he had fallen right back to sleep. There was no one in the back seat. I didn't hear the door shut. I looked back at the front of the car and I gasped as I saw him standing outside right in front of me, just staring. It was like he was waiting for me to leave already, but he was just asleep, and it startled me to see that tired, drunken face just standing there in the dark rain in front of the car, staring with cold, hollow eyes. He seemed so lifeless. I drove off and had to wait until I got closer to town, where there were more gasoline to fill up and there was service, and I could see how much money I made. It was a decent amount, so I filled the tank, bought a coffee, and decided to try the airport in Nashville, closer to home. I was leaving this country town where that eerie-seeming fella lived and wanted to forget how much he creeped me out. However, I got ride after ride in Murfreesboro, and finally, my last ride was a college gal who needed a ride home to her West Nashville house with her parents. She said, "Pathetic, ain't it?" And I said, "Well, we're about the same age. And if I'm being honest, I just recently moved out of my parents' house, so don't feel bad about it. What are you studying?" "Studio engineering." "Oh, nice. I'm a musician myself. I hear MTSU is good for that." We chatted for a decent amount of time. She loved 1980s rock. She enjoyed school, but the pressures were starting to build up on her, and she was addicted to Taco Bell. She was a very beautiful woman, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't enchanted by her at all. She had stopped talking in order to listen to a song that caught her ear on my shuffle. Finally, we got to her destination, which was 15 minutes from home in southeast Nashville. "Well, Dolores, you take it easy on yourself. It's been a pleasure. I looked in the back seat, and she was also gone, just like the creepy guy from earlier. This time, though, something felt wrong. The lights were on in her house, but she was nowhere to be seen outside down the street. There was no possible way she could have slipped from the car silently and so quickly like that. I'm deaf in both ears, but I would at least feel the door shutting vibrate the car. It was a very odd feeling, and out of curiosity I went and knocked on the door to see if I could make any sense of the whole situation. An old man answered. "Sorry to bother you, sir. I'm an Uber driver, and I just got sent here with a rider. Her name is Dolores, and she just disappeared, and I wanted to make sure that..." "Did you say Dolores?" "Yes, sir. Did she make it inside the house?" "Come in from the rain, young man." He was very kind and shared some coffee with me. He brought out a photo album. He seemed sad, but not quite surprised she was missing. "This Dolores?" he asked, showing me an old photo with an odd time stamp. "That's her, all right, but she's younger than me by a couple years. There's no way this picture was taken in the 90s. "Young man, please. That is my daughter, Dolores Lane. I am 80 years old. My wife died last year, and Dolores died in 1997. She would have been 53 this year. Every year it's the same damn thing. An Uber driver pulls up, a taxi cab, or someone who thought they picked her up hitchhiking. Every time they arrive, she vanishes. She's buried in a cemetery not far from here. I think because she was murdered so far from home, her spirit is trying to make it back home so she can finally go to heaven." I began to cry with the old man and was touched, but also disturbed that I had been in contact with nothing but a ghost. I flipped the page in the photo album and found the newspaper clipping with the mug shot of her killer. He was so familiar it was uncanny and discomforted me to see he resembled something cold, lifeless, with piercing hollow eyes. The strange coincidences sometimes, however, have strange ironies. The coincidences merely hid the fact that Dolores was not in that graveyard. I know this to be true, because as I left the old man's house, I saw the exact same college girl walking down the street. The nerve I had must have originated with the frustration of not understanding anything that was going on. The nerve drove me to lower my passenger window. "Dolores?" I felt like a madman. What if it wasn't her? I'd be asking some scared woman if her name was Dolores. "Oh shit!" Her mouth looked to be covered in blood. She hid it with the sleeve of her hoodie. "Are you okay? Your father thinks you've been dead for decades. Is that blood?" "Let me in the passenger seat," she said, sounding extremely nervous for some reason. "Okay." And I unlocked the door like a damn fool does before he's a damned fool. She hopped in, and I just started driving to a Waffle House that I felt was my safe spot. I knew the crew well as a regular. "So what's going on? I'm just kinda not understanding what your dad..." "What's your name?" she asked me, interrupting my ever so pertinent question that needed answering, or else my sanity might rip in shreds. I'm Matthew." "Right, that's what the Uber app said." She pulled her phone out like she was going to check for a text or a call, but she didn't even wake her phone up. She just looked at it deeply in thought and said, You probably think that I'm a ghost that uses a cell phone? Right. See, I'm not a ghost. Right. Okay, so this is going to be hard to explain while you're driving, but I'm just going to wing it here. Dolores sounded like she wanted to cry, but she was fighting it successfully. I am no longer human, Matthew. So what, you're a vampire? I asked, almost mocking her, but really starting to put pieces together. She laughed hard. I prefer to say creature of the night, because whatever I am doesn't 100% line up with all the stories and the lore of vampires. So, like, a creature of the night. Sunlight makes me sleepy. I don't burn like at all. I heal too fast to burn or tan. I'll always be pale like I was in life. Huh. I'd never thought about vampire healing and sunburns. I also love garlic. I don't sleep in a coffin. I don't have fangs, just strong teeth. I wasn't turned a vampire from another vampire. I became like this after being bitten by a bat. So, the blood? I'll get to that. I've been living not too far from here for decades since I died. I woke in my coffin so long ago. With so much strength I busted out, crawled through 6 feet of earth. The adrenaline and strength factor was crazy. I actually inhaled at least 3 cups of dirt, which my body immediately rejected once I got to the surface. God damn. I was found by a gravedigger. He helped me out, and as I cried in his arms, he attempted to do things to me. Things I felt invaded by, and out of nowhere, my jaw snapped at him, and next thing I know, I had eaten him alive. Meat off the face, and the neck, and the blood. Oh, the blood. Now I can't say I'm happy with all this, but it just is. The car grew silent for a moment. I looked at her face. I had realized I hadn't really deeply studied her face yet. She was of a certain beauty that cannot be praised by prose and poetry. Her emerald green eyes pierced my heart when they first really met my eyes. The rest I cannot go into too much detail, dear reader. She is currently in hiding. So your dad said you were killed? That's the official story. So who was that man they arrested? Your dad showed me that photo, and I swear I just picked him up from a bar an hour before I picked you up in Murfreesboro. Oh no. What? He frequents Murfreesboro all the time. Now he's out of jail. Lord knows how. I got no news of this. This isn't good. Well, I can assure you that we're like an hour and 15 minutes away from him, and he's so drunk I bet he didn't even make it inside his house. But if he killed you and a bat bit you, turning you immortal, something doesn't add up. His name was Jimmy Miller. He and I are the only vampires that I know about. We were friends back in '97. We went walking in the woods and I got bit by a bat. Shortly after, he did too. I argued that we should go to my dorm, but he argued, insisting I follow his lead into the woods. Little did I know he had a pistol hidden in his coat. Now, I never knew for sure it was the bat bite, but it's the only thing that makes any sense to me, at least. Some sort of terrible virus that causes an aggressive thirst for raw meat and blood. These freaky regenerative skills, some resemblance of eternal youth. I will age, but I'm aging so slowly that I don't look a day over 25 years old in decades. Her story was wild, and a long pause of silence again entered the car. We had been parked at the Waffle House for about a minute. Okay, that's all you gotta say? Well, I believe you. I grabbed the stack of napkins and a bottle of water. I wet the napkins and handed them to her. Let's talk more over some pie. She smiled sadly, dabbing away bits of blood on her face. We talked and talked in that Waffle House, and she explained how she was murdered and bombed and buried while still conscious. Her body had regenerated through all the formaldehyde, all the brain tissue damage from the bullet. How she felt her body go from as stiff as a board to a soft living creature again. A creature that could only sleep during the day, who knew not how she came to be this way. She knew she couldn't tell her family. She checks up on her father from time to time, confusing cab drivers and ride shares. I was so dumb to befriend her, for she has my heart now. And apparently I won hers, for after a few months of hanging out and talking, we got real sweet on each other. Somehow this virus worked itself into me, somehow in our passions. Because recently, and don't tell Dolores this, it would crush her. Recently I gained 100% hearing. My body feels amazing. My back never cramps, and my strength and stamina has improved beyond my understanding. Dolores is sleeping on the couch next to me right now. It's noontime, and I don't know what to do with these cravings I have had. My stomach is growling, and I yearn to eat a raw steak. But no, that's not good enough. I know what the cravings mean. I know the implications now. Damn me to a life of a killer, a beast. I have to tell Dolores somehow. I just know it. It must be tonight. And here I sit, beginning to doze off again. The only thing keeping me awake is my hunger. If I could share the peacefulness of daytime dreaming with my Dolores. If only I could spare her the knowledge that she infected me with this condition. I hate the bloodlust, but the rest doesn't concern me as long as I get to nap with her as I could be now. Dolores shifted her body to lay the whole way on the couch, and as she was about to lay her legs across my lap, I rose up from the couch. I had heard a sound. It was a familiar sound that nobody else would get up immediately for. However, there was a UPS man at the door. Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to do.